Hello, grade 4. In our lesson today, we will learn how to relate fractions and decimals. How can you record tenths as fractions and decimals? Let's use decimals to describe quantities. Tai is reading a book about metamorphic rocks. He has read 3/10 of the book. What decimal describes the part of the book Tai has read? We can use a model. This model is divided into 10 equal parts. Each part represents 1/10 of the whole. To model 3/10, we will shade 3 of the 10 parts. How can we record 3/10 as a fraction? This fraction shows 3/10. Now let's use a place value chart to relate 3/10 to a decimal. On a place value chart, the tenths place is to the right of the decimal point. There are 3/10, so there is a 3 in the tenths place. This decimal is 3/10. So Tai read 3/10 of the book. Now let's try to solve this problem another way. We can also use a number line to show 3/10. A number line can be used to show fractions and decimals that are equivalent to the fractions. This number line shows tenths from 0 to 10/10, or 1. Each tenth shows a distance from 0. Look at the fraction 1/10. It shows a distance of 1/110 from 0 and can be shown as a decimal with 1 in the tenths place. The fraction 2/10 shows a distance of 2/110 from 0 and can be shown as a decimal with 2 in the tenths place. What are the equivalent decimals for the fractions shown on the number line? The next decimal after 2/10 is 3/10, then 4/10, 5/10, 6/10, 7/10, 8/10, 9/10. What number is the decimal equivalent of the fraction 3/10? The decimal 3/10 names the same amount as the fraction 3/10. Tara rode her bicycle 1 4/10 miles. What decimal describes how far she rode her bicycle? 1 4/10 is a mixed number. It means 1 whole mile and 4/10. Let's see how mixed numbers are represented as decimals. You can use a number line to show mixed numbers and their equivalent decimals. Each mixed number and its equivalent decimal can be shown at the same point on the number line. This number line is marked by tenths from 1 to 2. Let's count the tenths between 1 and 2. What comes after 1? 1 1/10 comes after 1. 1 2/10 is 1/10 more than 1 1/10. Then comes 1 3/10, 1 4/10, 1 5/10, 1 6/10, 1 7/10, 1 8/10, 1 9/10. 1 9/10 is 9/10 from 1. It's 1 9/10 from 0. Finally, 2 is 1/10 more than 1 9/10. What's the decimal equivalent of the fraction 1 4/10? It's 1 4/10. 1 4/10 is 4/10 from 1. It's 1 4/10 from 0. The decimal 1 4/10 names the same amount as the mixed number 1 4/10. So Tara rode her bicycle for 1 4/10 miles. The fraction and the mixed number are read the same way. Let's use models to show 1 whole and 8/10. The model shows one whole and part of another whole shaded. What number completes the mixed number and the decimal that names the shaded part of the model? The model shows one whole and 8/10 shaded. So 8 completes the mixed number and decimal number. We can write 1 and 8/10 as a fraction or a decimal. How can you record hundredths as fractions and decimals? Let's find out how we can write 100ths as a decimal. You can use a model and a place value chart to find the answer. This model is divided into 100 equal parts. The whole model represents 1, and each part represents 100ths. This is how you write 100ths. How would you read this fraction? 100ths, the same way. A fraction with a denominator of 10 or 100 can be shown as a decimal. You can use a place value chart to write the fraction 100ths as a decimal. Places to the right of the decimal point represent parts of a whole. The hundredths place is 2 places to the right of the decimal point. A 1 in the hundredths place represents 100ths. Now let's write the decimal. That's the same value as the fraction. This fraction and this decimal are read the same way, 100ths. 100ths is the decimal form of the fraction 100ths. Here is a point on a number line. Let's find out what mixed number and decimal name this point. Each of the longer tick marks on the number line represents another 10 100ths. Each shorter tick mark in between is 100ths. You can start at 3 and 50 100ths and count on to the last longer tick mark before the point. Let's zoom in. Now let's count each shorter tick mark until you reach the point. So, what mixed number and decimal name the point? The point is one tick mark past 3 and 80 100ths. So the answer is 3 and 81 100ths. Now I'll let you enjoy this short video about tenths and hundredths.
Is a tenth. We can draw a rectangle to represent one whole. We can then divide the rectangle into 10 equal parts. Colouring one of the 10 parts gives us the fraction 1/10. We can also write 1/10 as the decimal number 0.1. We can show 1/10 on a place value chart. There are 0 ones and 1/10. Write as a decimal. The whole has been divided into 10 equal parts, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the parts are coloured. 6/10 are coloured. We can also write this as the decimal 0.6. We can show 6/10 on a place value chart. There are 0 ones and 6/10. Write as a decimal. Here we have one whole and 8/10. 1 and 8/10 are coloured. We can write this as the decimal 1.8. 1.8 has 1 1 and 8/10. What is a hundredth? We can draw a square to represent one whole. We can then divide the square into 100 equal parts. Colouring one of the 100 parts gives us the fraction 1 100th. We can also write 1 100th as the decimal number 0.01. We can show 100th on a place value chart. There are 0 ones, 0 tenths, and 100th. Write as a decimal. The whole has been divided into 100 equal parts. 10, 20, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35 parts are coloured. 35 hundredths are coloured. We can also write this as the decimal 0.35. We can show 35 hundredths on a place value chart. There are 0 ones, 3 tenths, and 5 hundredths.
That's it. Thank you for listening.